Hello and welcome to the first episode of Pieces in Action Verb podcast. This is Christine Boshin and I'm here with Randy Lovelace. And Randy, hello, thank you for joining us. I am going to introduce you very briefly as my friend from Stephanie's channeling class. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Randy Lovelace. I live in East Texas. Been a Texas boy all my life, and whatever that means to anyone. And I don't wear a cowboy hat, and I don't ride a horse, and I don't have an oil well in the backyard. But we're still here. Yes, we met, I guess, 2 years ago. Wait,
I think it's just been. Is it? I think it's been 1 year. That's how much has happened in life.
Seems like forever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've known you for such a long time. But yeah, the beginning of last year.
Right.
So that we met in her first channeling class and got to know each other a little bit and a little bit of our backgrounds, and things have kind of steadily progressed faster than what I've ever would have thought. But that's why it seems like it's been a long time. But then the channeling has helped me to progress onto other things and new directions. Still incorporating the channeling to some degree, but now more into shamanic studies.
Very interesting. So Randy, you and I both have this list of peace verbs open in front of us, and so I'm going to just dive into a couple of these verbs to explore with you. And it's a storytelling exercise, basically. So channeling, would you consider that a form of meditation? Is the verb to channel similar to the verb to meditate?
I think so, because I believe in meditation, you're looking for, or at least I'm looking for, answers. Sometimes for information. It could be information for myself, it could be information for others, but finding a better place, being able to still the mind and focus on the heart. And so, yeah, I think that's all part of meditation, trying to be quiet and listen. That's several verbs.
Yeah, that's right. So being quiet, listening, stilling oneself, stilling one's mind, and perhaps one's body also.
Yeah,
in the act
that's
of
difficult to do.
Right.
That's hard. That's not an easy task to do that.
And in the act of channeling and listening, there's also an act of conveyance now, isn't there? So if you're getting to that place of stillness, so maybe it's about removing chatter from one's own mind and then hearing messages and then conveying messages either to yourself or to a client or a friend or a loved one.
Right. And somewhere in there is also being able to discern what's chatter and what's just an important whisper.
And I would like to explore that a little bit with you, because I think that is such a beautiful and important question for all of us to ask ourselves is, how do I actually know truth when I hear it, see it, feel it, perceive in other ways? How do I know when something is true?
I think one way is, if something comes up, or a thought or a feeling comes up, and it's more of at least for me, an advantage for myself, or something that's only for my good, maybe it might be considered chatter. That's more of my my ego saying, "Oh, this is what you want. This is what you want." But if it has to do with, if there's no benefit for myself, if it doesn't help me personally in any way, then to me that's giving me the feeling that it's more truth, because it's there to benefit and help someone else.
Is that when you're channeling for someone else, for example? So like, I'm just wondering, because I'm sure that you are worthy of benefit and you are worthy of caretaking and you are worthy of being, being supported. And so I'm wondering if what you just said is about when you're channeling for somebody else.
Maybe even more than just channeling, could be also in interacting with other people. Channeling
Mhm.
for sure,
Mhm.
but sometimes in interacting with others, then sometimes the ego kind of steps in, puts a toe in the water, and wants to make itself known. And I'm working on that a lot, now, and that I'm really trying to focus on um, what's for the greater good and not necessarily for myself. So yes, for channeling for sure, but maybe on just everyday life in
Everyday
general.
life.
Well, yeah,
So we could maybe add the verb um, consideration of the greater good
yeah,
as a peace action.
yeah,
As
yeah, absolutely.
and maybe that comes before the peace action of acting.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've talked about being still, we've talked about meditation. Maybe we can talk a little bit about, I'm just looking down the list here. What about being witnessed and bearing witness? I have observed you listening to me and to other friends, and in that sense, I think you are particularly good at bearing witness and providing that loving attention and quiet listening that comes along with bearing witness. Can you talk to me about being witnessed?
Um, bearing and difference between bearing witness and being a witness. Well, I think bearing witness is more supporting, like you
Mhm.
said, to others. Being a witness, that's almost, well, that to me, being a witness is almost an education. It's almost a learning process. It's watching. Um, I think a lot of times you do have to include the be still and be quiet and to listen, but to witness what's going on around you. Um, that might not be supporting anyone else at that time, but maybe it's educational and learning for oneself.
So, so we were just talking, and I don't even remember if it was before we started recording or after we started recording, but we were talking about your journey in the past couple of years and moving from channeling as an introduction to now what's become shamanic studies.
Mhm.
And I would love to hear more about how are these two things similar and how are they different and how does that relate to the act of learning?
Well, of course, channeling, it's connecting with spirit, being able to communicate back and forth, whether it's spirit or animals, trees, Mother Earth, everything around you to be able to communicate. Um, Through the shamanic lifestyle, shamans use what they would call the non-ordinary world or the spirit world, uh, anything beyond, whether it's past, present, or future. They use that ability to communicate with the other side, and so I mean they're very much alike. They may have some differences in that uh, an experienced shaman can help an individual heal. They
Mhm.
can help ancestral healing. They can go back through a person's ancestry, through their lineage, find where an issue started and may have been passed down from generation to generation, ultimately causing some particular illnesses. But it's through that connection from the other side, the non-ordinary world, um, which is that part of it's very similar to channeling, and so one really assisted in being able to move into the other.
So it sounds like maybe channeling was learning the tools of communication or the tools of
Yeah.
perception, and perhaps shamanism is more of a role as a healer using
Mhm.
those tools. Would that be an accurate way to listen?
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
was almost, and really what I've come to realize, it's not necessarily teaching, but it's helping to remember, helping helping us to remember what we already know, what we're already capable of, and what we've done many times before, although we just didn't remember. So it's an act of remembering.
That's really interesting to me. And so I'm going to ask you a few more questions, and of course, we will give you the chance to edit, edit this conversation. But I was wondering if you could tell me, and like you can decide which one you want to talk about first. Tell me about your dad and his role as mentor to you, and your experience in loving, in grieving, in remembering, in honoring your dad, and how you're bringing him, your connection with him is very much alive. So I'm interested in that story and how he expands himself to be available to your friends, myself included. And I'm also interested in the story of, speaking of time travel, you were being called. You here you are, a dad, a grandfather, a husband, an insurance professional, living maybe a quote unquote normal life as you described in Texas, and you're being called to something very new, unknown to you, and yet familiar through your dad.
Mhm.
And then how the experience of meeting yourself from a different time, from an ancient time, and having a relationship with yourself in a wiser form than you are right now. And what is that like to remember? What is that like to integrate? So those are two threads, two storylines that I'm interested in hearing about as they relate to the verbs that we're exploring.
The story is very much interconnected and interwoven. Excuse me. Yeah, my dad was growing up as a child. I did not realize that he had the ability to channel, and he was a channeler, going back into the 60s and early 70s, and he was doing it at a time. He was being very much under the table and very quiet about it. Deep East Texas wasn't something that a lot of people were open to, and but it was just strictly for a few friends and family. Unfortunately, when I was a teenager, well, I say fortunately, he started opening up to me a little bit and showing me some things, and I realized, I have some abilities as well, and but I didn't think anything of it because I didn't know anything different. I didn't know I was not supposed to be that way. And but in the early 70s, basically society, and actually his brother and sister, who I later learned just things like that scared them,
Mm,
and tremendously. And so they kind of pushed to have him committed and put through electric shock therapy to, in essence, wipe everything out of his brain and have him start over again. And so that was very traumatic for me. I was also made to deliver him to the hospital to have that done.
were you his
And
oldest child, Randy?
I was the middle child.
The middle
It
child.
was myself and my older brother, who was 3 years older than
Mhm.
I am, and so we were basically none of the adults, the doctors, brother, sister, no one wanted to approach him on that.
Wow.
They just uh, they knew that he wouldn't fight or object to his sons coming
Mhm.
in, and we were just kids.
Right.
So we were doing what we're told, being obedient, and but then once it was done, I realized, wow, if I could ever feel like what Judas felt,
Mm.
you know, and handing Jesus over, that's
Mhm.
exactly the way I felt. And it was very traumatizing for me. And I held on to that for the next 50 years. But we were able to, took a number of years to bring my dad back, memory wise, to where he could at least function. He was
Mhm.
never the same person again after that.
Mhm.
And none of his abilities ever, he never talked about them. None of that ever came up again. He did pass away back in 2005. And then my mom passed a couple of months after that. And, but going through my life, I had always repressed all of those feelings and things, even though I didn't realize it. But then first of last year, I'm directed for some reason. I don't know why, through meditation.
Mhm.
And it was a result of taking custody of a couple of grandkids,
Mhm.
little kids. So I started meditating out of necessity.
Just to help yourself be the calm adult that squirrely little kids
Yes,
need, right?
yes, because
Right.
how can someone in my 60s, mid 60s, handle 4 and 5 year olds
Right.
and and stuff? So
My
traumatized
when I
for
was when I was an aunt, I thought that if I just had a leash at all times, that would be the way that I could handle my
yeah,
4-year-old
yeah,
nephew.
exactly.
Anyhow,
So through the
yeah.
meditation, suddenly my dad started coming to me.
Wow.
And then when I realized, I went, oh my God, this is so awesome. And so then just a flood of memories started coming back. I mean, just memories of
Oh,
the details of things that happened, how they occurred. I mean, just down to walking him to the door of the hospital, and then afterwards helping him to learn how to relearn how to brush his teeth and how to eat and how to dress and
oh my
how to take
gosh.
a shower. You know,
Yeah.
he couldn't do any of that. So
So he went from someone who was highly capable
oh yes,
and also had these gifts that were not that were very threatening to people from a traditional Christian
right,
perspective, right?
right,
So he went from being this remarkable caretaker, father,
protector, yes,
adult,
yes,
and then you had to reteach him all of those basic living skills. Randy, can I interrupt the story flow
sure.
just for a moment to call attention to some verbs that I'm hearing? Um, one of the verbs I heard was be obedient. You know,
Mhm.
so that in terms of direct of pushing your action as a teenager, I think, what were you, 15, 16 years old when
Yes,
you
yes,
took your dad?
yes,
Being obedient, which includes being respectful, right? I think there's that verb in there. And yet being obedient and being respectful can be confused with each other, I
right.
think. So you did this thing and then you said you felt like Judas. And in invoking that story, you're also invoking how deeply special and gifted your father was and is, right? And how much love your father embodied and embodies
Mhm.
in making that comparison. And so I'm also realizing there's I don't know that it's on your list here, but making mistakes, you know, so like allowing oneself to have made a mistake or to be in a position where one doesn't know any better, and the act of self-forgiveness that is tied to that experience. And
Forgiveness is on there, but
forgiveness is on here, yeah.
self-forgiveness is a big thing.
Self-forgiveness. And then I wanted to add another verb that I don't even think is on this list, but um it's forget, actually. And I have noticed when it comes to trauma that forgetting, because you're talking about the memories came flooding back to you. So that meant that there was a 50-year period or so, maybe 40-year period in which you didn't have access to those memories. And that in itself, I believe, is a peace action because it allows function, right? It's a protective mechanism that our soul and our body seem to make happen for our personality
That's
until we're
in the shamanic life. One of the things one of the healing processes is for the shaman to go in and find that trauma. And what happens is part of your soul, in order for protection, it actually fractures off from the whole, and it's stored away, kind of like in a suitcase in a closet. So that, and that's the way that the individual survives. Well, then through the shamanic healing, they can go find that fractured piece of the soul, heal it, and bring it back and reconnect it to the whole. And that's a whole healing process. Now the individual is no longer damaged, but now they've become healed, and now they're whole again.
So there's an integration, there's a reintegration that happens, and a retrieval that happens. So I wanted just to, sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to bring forward those verbs into the spotlight to a certain degree.
Good verb.
The verbs. So this is also an element of time travel in this story, because you're talking to me about you and your wife had just gotten custody of your grandchildren. And so you are in real time, you are holding down your job, you are providing for your family, you are integrating these small children into your home. And of course, there's their trauma in terms of all that happened before that moment, and then adjusting to a new living environment. So that's today. And then yet the meditation is bringing back yesterday.
Right.
And so here you are in the middle of this, there's today and there's yesterday, and it's all coming through this meditation space. And so then what happens? So your dad is coming through, then what happens?
And then I feel like I was directed to Stephanie's channeling workshop for more education. I didn't know why or what, but so then going through those classes, both workshops, I was able to learn or remember more of the connections with spirit. And then my dad actually introduced me to two of my guides, my primary guides, which are both Native American, and not realizing how important Native American was going to end up being for me. But then actually through the channeling that, and it was Stephanie channeling for me, that I was directed to start researching that safe spot that I had always known about, the place that I go when I need to be home, so to speak. And this place I've been pulled to for the last 50 plus years. And it's close by. It's at a local lake, just not 2 hours away from where I live. And this one spot is, I've always, as a child and to this day, I feel when I'm there, then I'm truly home. And so through the channeling, I was directed to research that.
And that gets at spending time with non-humans, with the land, with the water, with trees and other plants.
Exactly.
And I think this has been a fishing spot for you too. So in that sense, you've also been spending time with animals in this special sacred place.
Exactly.
So this place has been drawing you, always drawing you, giving you, we're talking about peace being an action verb, and yet we all know that peace is a sensation of, how do we describe it besides just approximation with words, right? But it's a place that called you, and when you were there, you felt home. And so maybe peace and home are very similar.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
So you were being called, and so I'm just going to mention, and this information will be in, when this is posted as a podcast, it will be included in the description. But when we talk about Stephanie, we're talking about Stephanie Banks, who is a gifted channel and teacher, and we both know her from different ways, but we met through her class. So Stephanie brought through information that says you need to research. And so there's another verb here, not on your list, but we're going to add to it, delve, because researching and delving are similar actions, right? To study, to explore, to pursue. So tell us about what it meant to research this place, this special place.
It was very interesting. I started checking with the historical records and things on Native American Indians that were in that area, and I found out that going back for centuries, the first recorded evidence of this tribe, and it was called the Aish Indian tribe, AIS, Aish Indian tribe, and they were there. They were actually discovered by the original European explorers coming over, and they came through and they noted that these Indians were there, and historians feel like they were there centuries before that, and just very, very ancient. Well, then through my own channeling, I discovered that I was going to be able to be introduced to someone, and I met their medicine man that was there in the early 1500s. He was there when the original explorers came through. Well, we connected on numerous times, and he basically gave me a tour of the village, showed me different aspects of their life, how they were. They were mainly agricultural, very peaceful people, but just very mysterious and off to themselves. And I realized that this man was their very influential and powerful medicine man. His name was Quakinensal, which the interpretation that they tell me is one who sees and knows. So he was very intuitive, very, very much of being able to see what's happening, what's going to happen, and a very, very powerful person. And the more we delved into each other, I discovered that I'd started asking questions. Was I there? Did I know Quakinensal? And it was, yes, I did. And ultimately, I discovered he was me in a prior life 500 years ago. And that was such an amazing experience. And then also to come to the realization that since I've spent so much time in that area, he had spent his life in that area. There are trees, and how this came to my head, there are cypress trees lived to be old, several thousand years old. Yeah. And so I thought, my God, there is the possibility that I might have touched the same tree that Quakinensal did. And then things just exploded, and just I could tell, yes, this was the case.
So there's a little bit of, on my own arm, some goosebumps forming. And so when you have these moments of clarity, right? So when you're journeying, you're seeing with your mind's eye, or that inner eye, the landscape, the village, the conversations with Quakinensal. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Quakinensal. And then you have these moments, they're almost like nodes on a tree, where the information concentrates, and the sensation of truth concentrates, and the sensation of discovery concentrates. So you find this connection, this physical and spiritual connection to a separate yet same entity that's you. And so, you say in the past, we have this concept of time that it moves in one direction, right?
It doesn't.
And the one thing that has perhaps fascinated me the most about this realization of multiple lifetimes for one soul is, I like to think that I'm getting older and wiser with time, moving like, I was born in the 70s and now it's the 2000 somethings and I'm older and wiser. But no, right? Sometimes the older, wiser me or you is what we call in the past. And so that connection to oneself in an older, wiser, more expanded form being in the past it just fascinates me. And then also to make the connection between, you're talking about the action of a shaman as a healer is very much about retrieving parts of one's soul. And so, who's retrieving whom here? In terms, is he retrieving you? Are you retrieving him? Are you retrieving each other? Is it a joint process?
And I think that's a very good point. And I think that, yes, it can be, because who created chronological? It is people in the normal reality. But in reality, time doesn't really exist on the other side. And so, yes, I may have touched the same tree that he touched, or vice versa. Maybe we touched at the same time.
Right.
And
Right.
which that gave me really big chills.
Yeah. And so I think also the significance and importance in the healing for all of us, of you as you know, in your own flesh and blood right now, of European descent, or at least mostly to the extent that you know, right? Connecting with yourself as a native when there's been so much trauma. We're talking about trauma healing. Making that connection and your role now. So your role now as the shaman, your role now as the or the expanded reality explorer. And so you were told to delve, but there was more to it than that. I remember something about ceremony, right?
Mhm.
And so
Right.
ceremony is you have an X here, hold a space. And so I'm wondering, since you and I have last spoken, what have you learned about that as a part of the instructions that you are perceiving that are coming to you as your
I've
mission?
learned some really cool things. I've learned that I have a lot to remember on things, because there's so many different reasons and different types of ceremony. I know that it's going to be very important for my life going forward, you know, in this particular lifetime. But ceremony plays a big part in healing, not only for others, but for oneself. Um,
Mhm.
and you mentioned, or both of us healing each other, and I feel like yes, the answer to that very much so is yes. Juan and so did tell me that he had an enormous amount of guilt from knowing that what was going to happen to his people with
Having
the
a
explorers
premonition.
coming through and them basically being eliminated, and not letting his people know and properly prepare. So he had an immense amount of guilt. So I realized that he had healing there. I think working with me and my other guides is helping him to heal, as well as they're working with me to help me heal through numerous ceremonies, through either combination of past trauma or guilt that has passed from other lifetimes, or even through this lifetime dealing with my dad and other things that have transpired. In in the past months, I've gone through a tremendous amount of healing, which I can feel the difference in peace that's come across.
And Randy, how does that feel? You feel a difference in peace that's come across. Is it in your body? Is it in the thoughts that go across your mind? What is it like to feel that peace
coming
coming
from
into
the
you?
heart, because the heart is the center of everything. I mean, it directs the mind, it directs the rest of the body through from the heart. Since it's kind of like the train station. You know, it's the hub of transportation, the hub of communication. It's the hub of everything that we have. You know, going from all directions, and so having more peace and love in my heart enables me to not jump to anger. It's something that happens. It helps me to say, why did this happen? It didn't happen to me, and even if it did, what was the reasons? And maybe that's another individual that needs some assistance or help. You
Oh, so
know,
you're
and
so to feel peace is to feel a
love.
heart-filled pause. Love. And
Yeah.
love is, love like peace is a noun that's very hard to capture with language. And yet we all inherently know, we know love.
We think most so many people, they hear the word love and it's, oh, it's for this person, that's a sexual thing. For this person, well, that's for your spouse or for your parents or for your kids. But feeling love for, other people that you don't even know is so important, because then when you're filled with love, then you're not filled with the negative, with the opposite of it. Um,
So it's
and
about filling your own container.
yeah,
So
a lot
much
of
of
the
this.
healing is purging all that no longer serves, and things that feelings, traumas, all of these issues that no longer serve you, they're still in you, and that in itself can cause health issues, because it can turn into crystallized energy. It can turn into or manifest into aches and pains and physical issues, where then if you can purge that and then fill that empty space back up with love and light, then physically people are in much better shape.
So I'm hearing a lot of verbs here. One of them, you said it that no longer serves, and I think in that way of wording this, it's this beautiful recognition that at some point it did serve,
Right.
and in the process of healing, that there's a necessity to hold on to what we might call negative feelings, anger, for example.
Sometimes we hold on to it because we're trying to justify it, or this is why I'm in the position I'm in, because it's and blame this thing.
And so in that blaming, there's, I guess that to me, it feels like there's a spiral experience where those expressions are actually self-loving, because they're basically just like that little bit of self-forgiveness that, oh, it's not me, it's the circumstance. Or, if I can make that other person wrong, then I can be right. And so there's a certain, that itself is actually self-love and very important. And yet there's a point in time where one is ready to be more expanded, and
That's the case where it's not self-serving.
right. And then it gets to serving the greater good, which allows for that pause that you're talking about, where the negative empties out and the love that is already there expands. And there's that, you don't jump to anger, is what you said. You don't jump to anger, but you jump to questioning.
Right.
You say how, something along the lines of, have you heard the expression, how in God's green earth could somebody do that? Right? Where it's a sarcastic and angry way of saying that. But then if it's then, how in God's green earth could somebody do that? And there's this actual, I really want to know, I really want to understand. And so I think you're talking about that how do I understand? How do I empathize? How do I forgive? How do I want to see the bigger picture and history that this person may be carrying with them?
And sometimes you say, how in the heck can at God's green earth can someone do something? And many times that there's a reason for it, and there's a because we all have soul contracts. A lot of people don't think about that. I mean, when we come into this world and we're incarnated, we have a purpose and we have a reason for it. And living in our own body, we may not realize what that is, because the contract was made by our soul before we were incarnated.
So we forgot. And right? It's one of those moments of forgetting.
We don't remember, because that's above our pay grade, basically. Right. And because as this living entity here, we don't have the frequency, we don't have the ability to think on a higher plane as our soul did, as an individual soul. So many times you might have something that's traumatic or very, very bad. We would think, oh my God, how could that happen? How could somebody do that? But in their contract, this is a learning experience for them. What is it like to be this type of person? What is it like to do this thing? Or what am I going to learn from it? And then as that soul is creating knowledge and stuff, then they pass it on to the next life. And
so your father, Buddy, who not only guides you, supports you, teaches you, hold space for you as you're guiding, supporting, and teaching others. But he's been doing that for your friends,
That's,
myself included. And
that's,
I had a bike ride with Buddy, my first experience, and he's
he loves
he's
it.
funny. He's, I mean, besides being wise and loving and helpful, Buddy is funny.
Yeah.
And you know, Buddy had a very, very hard incarnation here, you know, in the lifetime that he was your dad, this one that you remember Buddy from. And how has Buddy described to you this whole business of soul contract? Because you know, you and your brother as children, as adolescents, had to drive him to be
Mhm.
committed. His brother and sister made that decision. You know, there's a lot of pain there. And yet, could we talk about the soul contracts and the carrying out of the soul contracts and the lessons?
Well, one of the things that he told me early on, you know, as I'm remembering all these painful things and getting emotion, and emotion is something that for the last 50 plus years I've not had.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I held back. I did not show emotion. I got emotional, but it never showed. And then once all these memories started coming back in, there was no stopping. When I meditate, I had to start keeping a box of Kleenex and they're right there in arm's reach,
Right.
because suddenly the floodgates are coming out and stuff. But he told me, he said, this was something that was supposed to happen. He said,
Oh my
this
goodness.
was my contract. This is what I needed to go through. I needed to experience this. Um, he needed to walk the walk before, in essence, he got out and started talking the talk. Um, and I think during some of the channelings of him during Stephanie's workshop, I mean, that was made apparent that he's been there. He's suffered. He's walked the walk, and he understands when somebody is afraid to say something or whatever it might be. He needed that experience of going through all the trauma, all of the pain, and everything to be able to help others going forward, which is, I mean, there's no number of people that's too many for him to help. I mean,
Right.
all they have to do is ask, and
Right.
one of the benefits of being on that side, you can be everywhere at once.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So this concept of, you know, we think of there being a place. So like an hour ago, I was in that room next to
Mhm.
this room. And I think that I'm here right now, but I'm actually, you know, if we take away time, I'm in both places. So Buddy being in a place, a space, a dimension without time, Buddy can be here and there. Buddy can be with you and me and many others who are asking Buddy for Buddy's specific kind of help. So very, very interesting for us earthbound folks to stretch our imagination outside of time and space and to consider. So, so the soul contract and the need to suffer as a tool of expanded empathy, I think
Yeah. Whether
is
it's suffering or not non-suffering, whatever the experience going through is what the soul wanted to experience. Because every time we come back and reincarnate, it's knowledge. It's learning a new experience, and again, the odd thing is it's not necessarily going forward chronologically. Uh, you can reincarnate going in the past as well. So it's just a matter of where do you need to be, who do you need as parents, who do you need as siblings, who do you need as an environment to learn that which you are seeking information on and knowledge on. And then you can, that's the soul can then move forward and use that information to help others. And when that soul contracts can be changed, it's not a set in stone, but that is your initial contract, you know, going forward.
it's your game plan, it's your blueprint, it's
Yeah,
your set of instructions, and then
yeah,
there's free will to
exactly. But
adjust.
he initially he had to put my mind at ease that this was all supposed to happen. It was supposed to happen to him. it was supposed to happen to all of those around, because all of that stuff, it actually happens to everyone around, and it's not just to him individually, and it was all part of it, you know. And I feel like if I didn't go through whatever that I went through, I would be a different person,
Right.
totally.
Right.
You know?
So it formed you. It formed
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
and there's been this opportunity with the box of Kleenex and the stilling of the mind to bring healing forward. So
yeah,
there's like the tears that couldn't fall when you were 17 and you were just holding it together. You still have that opportunity to go
yeah,
back into your body and take
exactly.
and bring that pain out and let it go. And then you have that deeper peace that
Right.
comes.
And then we went through certain ceremonies of cleansing and purging that involved my guides in Kwankan and very intense ceremonies that I learned during some of the shamanic journeying and which helped to purge so much and
So
open up to help me find more peace.
Randy, two questions. What is a ceremony and what is a shamanic journey? So we say ceremony, it's, for many cultures, that is a question that does not need to be answered because it's still very much a part of the fabric of the practice of living. For those of us who don't come from a culture that has allowed that remembrance and we've squelched it and we've corralled it into maybe church on Sunday being the only ceremony. What does ceremony mean?
A ceremony is something more formal. It could be a fire ceremony. It could be a water ceremony. More recently, we did a water ceremony, kind of honoring the water spirits and nature, Mother Nature, and so forth. So the whole ceremony was very, very respectful, very reverent, very much tuned into the water and the water spirits. It could be an earthing ceremony. Was actually buried up to my head for about 35 minutes and experiencing Mother Earth and things. And so those are more official and formal ceremonies.
So ceremony, so just to break it down a little bit, it sounds like you're talking about the elements of physical nature, like to be with them. So if you're talking about a fire ceremony, there are flames, there's something that is being combusted. When you're talking about a water ceremony, there is water. There's the H2O that you are present with, and yet it's not just about that you're there with that, or the earthing ceremony, you're there with the soil over your body, but it's the bringing the non-physical, the extraordinary reality in connection with the physical reality with a prayer is what I'm hearing. So there's an honoring, there's bringing your attention to the physical and non-physical aspects of this sacred presence, the water, the fire, the soil. You didn't mention air, but I imagine there's also of the wind and of the air. And so you're bringing your prayer, you're bringing your honoring, you're bringing your attention to this, maybe this thing that you do. You get buried in the soil, maybe you're holding a bowl of water, maybe you're kneeling at the banks of the lake. So is that an approximation of description of ceremony?
Very, very good description. Yeah, it's excuse me, getting very much in touch with that particular aspect of the world. Whether it's the earth or the fire or the whatever, it's getting in touch with ancestors, more on a broad level. A journey may be more individual. It could be like a shaman. A journey is basically putting oneself into a trance. And through the use of most common is like drums or rattles, getting a certain rhythmic beat going, and then just kind of going into a trance working a lot with our spirit animal and having our spirit animal take us where we need to go. Do we need
So
to
a
go to
spirit,
a certain place or meet with a certain spirit or individual, then or wherever it is that we need to be, then that spirit animal takes us there.
so there's a lot there. So there's spending time with non-humans, right? There's spending time with
Right.
animals, and also with the understanding that the human soul that is actually being guided by the animal who is the wiser,
Mhm.
the wiser, more capable guide, really guide in the sense of, you just said, they take me where I need to go. And so when you're traveling on, I'm going to use an English word because I don't know how else to say it, but the inner planes, the landscape that is through the mind and the soul's imagination, that you are guided by your capable helper, your teacher, who is an animal.
Right.
And your animal came to you. When did you meet your spirit guide, and who is your spirit guide? Animal.
Earlier this year, I guess I had always had a fascination with eagles. I mean, I've got eagles all around me. I mean, pictures and statues and figurines and everything. I've always been fascinated by eagles. And so when I started the shamanic training, and we wanted to discover who our power animal was, and we'll deal with many different animals over the course of time, but there's always, every person has a particular animal, and it could be an actual animal, it could be one that's extinct, it could be a mythical animal. It's not just set in stone as to, it's got to be an actual animal, but that particular animal is what is going to help guide you. I mean, you have your guides that help you on everything else, but that animal is what in a shamanic journey is going to take you places. It's you're not going to tell yourself this is where I need to go.
Mm.
You can have an intention, but it's the animal that knows that's wise and knows where you need to be.
Okay.
And there's numerous times when I've thought this is where I need to go. The animal, my eagle, had other options and said, no, this is where we need to take you. And it's always, that is for the greater good. That is where you need to be. And so you follow your animal. They escort you around. They you can have discussions like any other place. But the animals, what helps you on your particular journey, whether it's journeying inside someone to look at health issues, or it's journeying to find a piece of soul that's been fragmented off, or it's journeying to find something lost or something. So
there's a lot of when I don't know when you were a young child if this was a favorite game of yours, but I did very much enjoy hide and seek, and especially the version of hide and seek that was sardines. Have you ever played sardines?
what?
Have you ever played the game Sardines?
Sardine. I think I've heard it.
So it's hide and seek, but it's the opposite, where like if you're going to play hide and seek, one person hides and you try to find that person, and if you find that person, you've won the game, right? You find. But with sardines, you join them. So if I were the one who's hiding playing sardines, I might try to find the lowest branch of a big tree that not only I could hide under, but that 10 other little kids could also squeeze in and be quiet and not seen. And so there's this like delight in that of seeking and finding. So it sounds like shamanic the practitioner, the practice of being a shaman is very much about finding and reuniting.
Yeah.
Going on journeys to bring back something that was lost or something that was dismembered, and to remember. So you've been talking about the act or the verb of remembering, and how that is the opposite of dismemberment, right? If dismemberment is to destroy or to scatter, it's a remembering.
looking to make healthy and make whole.
Make healthy and make whole. And so Randy, what a year you've had, right? Or
Yes.
it's probably not been more than a year and a half of this exploration. And so as you bring yourself back into, so you said East Texas, yes?
Yes.
You're East Texas, you were a provider, you're a dad and a grandpa and a husband and a businessman, and also a budding shaman. and so what is there in the act of balance? You know, the balance is also on your list.
I think you do have to balance all of it. I think um, filling the heart full of love plays a big part of that, because if you're too selfish, too much ego, too much of this or that, then your private life really suffers. And then, you know, I think you need support of the family. You need support of your spouse and the kids, and they need to be excited about what my grandkids call the magic of shamanism. When they get a little boo-boo, they run and say, Papa, can you do your magic and make it better? And to see them mimicking some of those actions and believing in magic, you know, it's wonderful to see, you know, them growing and their excitement on things, and knowing that magic does exist. Magic is all around us and throughout the world and throughout Mother Nature and stuff. So
and holding so in your own family, in your own community, to be able to come out of the shadows and to be able to, and we haven't talked much about Jesus, we did a little bit, right? But to be able to embrace the divinity in all its forms, and to say
it's difficult sometimes to come out, and it's one of the things that getting back to, you know, my dad's experience. I mean, I still have that inner fear, you know, that although times are different, they don't do electric shock therapy anymore. My dad did not have a tribe, so to speak, of support to help. He didn't have anyone to ask questions. That's not the same with me. I do have friends and people that I can ask and for help and support and love. And so times are different, but there's that little inner fear inside that, oh my gosh, if somebody finds out. But that's part of the growing and the healing and the purging of that doesn't no longer serves me anymore, is the learning how to slowly come out, so to speak, and to let people know. And I've got friends that will refer to me now, and someone, maybe they may need a house clearing, you know, or maybe they have issues with unwanted energies within their house. It could be just negative energies from a trauma. It could be, you know, a spirit that they're not comfortable with, and so I've had those referrals coming to me to go through and do a shamanic home clearing and blessing and so forth.
And it seems to me, Randy, that you know, being another person of European descent, that we all have in our bloodline, in our bones, we have shamans in our own histories, and yet our people got very off course in a way that has been maybe the biggest destructive force in the world. And to direct that healing inward, there's that forgiveness, that self-forgiveness outward, and somehow to heal in a not in just a two-directional way, but like a multi-directional way. It feels to me like a globe with tendrils going out in all directions, not just one or two, but all directions, time, space. You're healing your own family line. You're getting this connection with Kwan Knitzel, and your own grandchildren don't have to be in the closet, right? They didn't have to have a closet period in their life. They come to grandpa and say, can you help me heal this,
Yeah.
this boo-boo? And they are allowed to see that as okay, and to not have that confusion descended upon them.
And also those that just don't or refuse to acknowledge any of that, any of those teachings, that to love them anyway. One of the greatest stories that I heard recently was talking about the Lake Indians in South America and the shamans that they had there. And when the conquistadors came through, conquistadors said, "Well, you don't believe the way we do, so we're gonna wipe you out." And so they tried to kill all the shamans and eliminate the Lake Indians. And the way that they survived was, we need to love them. We need to love the conquistadors, because something good is coming from this. Even though they're eliminating our society, something good will come through. The teachings we have will survive. And
it's remarkable, the importance of love, and the importance of finding that connection from within, and having the patience for people that need to be angry.
Yeah. Basically, it was the Western Western civilization is what put us, tried to eliminate all of the teachings for thousands and tens of thousands of years on spiritualness, on Mother Nature, and shamanism, and there's shamans and shaman practices all over the world.
Every single cultural tradition has that.
All the Native American Indians and so forth. So it's been there. It's had to be quiet for so long, but now it's starting to have a voice again. And which didn't get this. The world didn't get this way overnight. It will take a while to fix, but at least it's the word is spreading again. And because I think there's all of, whether it's Christianity or all of the religions of the world, each one of those to me is just a small piece of the overall universe. They're all important. They're all play a part. They're all good, and they all have great meanings and great teachings. But it's like an iceberg. You only see that much of it,
depending on where you live.
Yeah.
Wow, Randy. So I'm just going to pick this. I have this list right here. I just want to see if we've left any off that are really important before we, I don't want to take your whole day here. Persist, voice, storytell, envision. We haven't talked about those. And then you had added some also: ask, flow, give grace, and we have talked about love. Any of those strike a chord to you?
My dad, from the get-go, he kept showing me a flowing river.
A flowing river.
And just go with the flow. And I would get impatient, but I wanted to do it fast. And one of the things he said was, remember that rushing water destroys, and flowing water shapes, molds, and make things beautiful. The smooth stone didn't happen overnight, and it takes a while and to be shaped and smoothed and things. So when I get in a hurry, when I get impatient, I just suddenly I see that flowing stream or that flowing river going, and it's just constant. And just it's a lot easier to go with the flow than to try to swim upstream. So go with it, and to ask questions, and giving grace. Gosh, you never know where people are at in their head, or what's happened to them, or what kind of trauma just occurred that no one knows about, because they're afraid to voice it. They're afraid about being judged because of something that happened, even though they had no control over it. And
or maybe they did have control over it, and maybe they're I mean, isn't that like part of the whole soul contract thing? Sometimes we choose to be bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, uh, so it seems like to give grace is a combination of forgiving,
Mhm.
but it's that, and it's also giving love, support, prayer,
Right.
allowance. So grace is like forgiveness plus so much more.
Yeah.
And that can be a silent act, right? That can be just
No one has to know about it, but it's when you give someone grace now, it affects what's in your heart, because now you're not just sitting there just and you're really angry, and it just keeps getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and then at some point that's going to manifest into either headaches or aches and pains or whatever it is. And whereas if you give grace and you realize, I don't know what their situation is, I don't need to know, that's okay, but you know let it go,
Mhm.
let it flow down the stream, and then you end up feeling so much better, and you're not angry, you're not upset, your day goes better, and then because you didn't blow up, their day goes better.
And it seems like giving grace it's about surrender. You're talking about letting it go, letting it flow, keeping your own heart space clean and available. So I think you're also, when you're doing that, you're also giving that person a second chance, aren't you? Because if you have that open heart space and they want to come back to you later and say, I'm sorry, or can you help me? Or even come back and give you another helping of, nasty behavior, like you're
Yeah,
still giving them another
yeah.
chance, right?
But you trust that it's for the greater good.
And that there's
Somebody's
this,
learning something.
so there's a respect for the learning process.
Right.
There's a respect for the school that is the earth experience.
The universe knows better than we what we need and what somebody else needs, and
And
it's not always about us.
it's not always about us, and there are unseen helpers that we can see when we tune into that kind of seeing, that can guide us, like our spirit guide, our animal guides, our counsel. I don't know how do you call your collection of main guides? Do you have a name for them? Do they have a name that they give themselves?
Well, I have my three main ones. Continental was my prior life self, medicine man. I have White Cloud, and I have White Eagle. I mean, White Buffalo. White Buffalo was an Arapaho Indian chief and medicine man, and White Cloud was from the Iowa Nation. And so the three of them, sometimes I'll just say, "Hey guys," and when I'm addressing them as a collective, and but along with them, when there's something really big, or I feel like I need, well, I leave it up to them, because there's times when it's not only the three of them, but they bring in the whole Native American collective, basically all Native Americans, ultimately that's ever been, and the whole collective. There have been a few occasions where I saw them, I felt them all around. So it wasn't just them; they brought everything in. So a lot of times I address them individually. Just kind of depends on the need. Sometimes I may address them individually, and then they say, "No, you need this."
And they send
So
you.
then it's trust that they know and understand what I need more than I do, and take their lead.
Wow, thank you. and and so there were, let's see, ask, flow, give grace, love, stepping out of your comfort zone. We added that at the beginning of the call before we started recording.
Yeah, stepping out of the comfort zone, letting somebody know that this is my life. that's that's from a recovering introvert. That's and the experience of what my dad experienced. Um, that's definitely stepping outside of my comfort zone, because some people, um, they don't know how to handle that. They don't understand it, and so therefore it scares them. So many people, they're scared of what they don't understand, which has been over the course of history, has always been the cause of usually bad things.
And I would say in relation to this particular concept of being connected with the spirit world, outside of just being connected to Jesus, right? Because there's so many people that are connected to Jesus, and that's allowed,
right,
in the mainstream Christian culture. But being connected
or
to the spirit world,
any of the prophets or the saints, and same thing.
Right. And so I think for us of European heritage, it's important to be aware of the burning times, like the 300 something years where people of our sort were killed, and how families ratted each other out, and lived in, well, I can't be on that side of things because that side of things gets killed. And so there's this, like you're talking about, ancestral healing and recovering soul fragments and pain.
It's okay to talk to St. Francis and ask for help, but you can't talk to your grandma.
Or the spirit of the rock to whom your people have been coming for hundreds and hundreds of years, or the spring, or the river, or the mountain. So to be aware, to be cognizant of that part of our history is a part of the collective remembering of soul fragments of all of us, I think. And to see how that story has repeated into modern times, like look at your dad, being taken to a mental hospital and the frontal lobe being shocked. He wasn't burned at the stake, but there's that echo of that.
Right, exactly. And it's only because they didn't burn at the stake at that time.
Right, that wasn't the way that it was done, but it was still the effort to erase. And so there's the remembering of the self, the remembering of the family, the remembering of the society, and all the while holding down the job and raising the kids, and taking out the trash and all those other things that one does as a responsible adult, making things happen, right?
Exactly. So there's always something to do, and I mean, we're living in this world. We need to function in this world, but we don't have to. Our heart and our minds don't have to remain in this physical world and be surrounded by all the things that society wants to show us, and we don't have to. I not lack a better word. We don't have to wallow in the mud pit. We can focus on the people and our friends and our surroundings, our tribe, so to speak, that will support us and love us with no judgment, whether or not they choose to participate in the same type of things, or maybe they have other skills and other abilities. So it's different.
It's the not only just yourself inviting that unconditional love and support, but you're also giving it. So you're saying, I don't have to get all of the people I love. Like I don't have to understand them all the way or resonate with them completely, but I will also support them. They will support me. I will support them.
Right, exactly. And understanding and being okay with the fact that you may lose friends, but you're also going to gain many. And I know you've probably experienced, just in your channeling, you've probably experienced the same thing, that somebody said, "Oh, no, that's woo-hoo," and so we can't be friends with you because that's something's wrong there.
I think for me, for a lot of it, those people are just really quiet. They don't necessarily tell me that, but they might just think that, or just or they just don't talk to me about that, and that's fine. But I noticed for myself also that I had quite a lot of internalized self-imposed fear that wasn't actually real. I didn't really have an actual reason to feel that, but being in a line of work in the science and engineering side of things, was very afraid that if my colleagues knew that I was doing this or had this, that they would think I couldn't also be a scientist, right?
Yeah.
That like,
where
uh,
everything is measured and proven in facts and yeah.
right. It's like, and for me, it's just, it's another methodology of delving,
Yeah.
right? So like I can delve through my inner journey and know truth through my own, like, I am a set of equipment. I am scientific equipment. I have sensory uh, capacity just as much as some of the machines that I used in school to tell whether or not there was a particular chemical in the water. Those machines could sense. I am also a sensing tool. Anyhow, long story short, I'm finding that people don't expect me to be either or, that the both end is actually celebrated. So yay. Here we are. It's a good time to
Yeah.
be where we are doing what we're doing.
It is. And knowing that thought is expanding as far as moving back towards the some of the older ways and accepting them. Don't necessarily have to believe in them as long as you accept the fact that they're there and they've been there for tens of thousands of years or longer. And I mean, just look around and seeing people are wanting to eat more organic or change their diets. They're wanting to look into a more holistic methods, in their healthcare rather than just a pharmaceutical things. So at least the thought is expanding and moving back to where it used to be, long ago. And incorporating both. I mean, you have a mixture of both the old Eastern, what I would call the Eastern medicine or Eastern methods, together with the Western. They're blending
Integration.
More. So, yeah.
Taking them and weaving them together.
Yeah, I think there's a need and a purpose for both.
Yes. Yeah. As someone who's had surgery recently and also, meditates, I would agree that they're definitely both valuable. Randy, I think we've had quite an exploration here, and I'm just looking at your list and wanted to offer you, would you like to touch on anything else? Was there any other storyline that we haven't explored that you were hoping to share?
You had mentioned, well, I would say learn with your heart. I think that is so, lead with your heart,
Lead with your heart.
Lead with your heart. And then spending time, you mentioned with the land, the water, Mother Earth, I think that is so important. Appreciate, and you mentioned the rocks, and I think appreciate where we came as where the Earth came. Those hundreds and thousands and millions of years ago, and because I believe trees are alive, plants are alive, the Earth is alive. It's ever changing. Rocks, all of those things they're alive. They have energy, and to appreciate those things. And once you learn to appreciate and you start feeling what they're trying to say, then you become more alive yourself.
So there's a allowing oneself to perceive, allowing oneself to feel and express gratitude. That's on your list here.
Yeah.
And then that perception, that expansion of belief system, that feeling and expressing gratitude then leads to a greater awareness of connection, a greater awareness of being supported and providing support and being a part of this phenomenal history of life on Earth.
So it's all a lifestyle. And to me, it's like, somebody wants to go on a special diet. It's a lifestyle change. It's not necessarily a special diet. I mean, so learning to utilize your heart to its full capacity of loving and supporting and others and learning and leading with your heart. I think that's a lifestyle.
Leading with
So,
the heart as a lifestyle, and tools including stilling the mind
mm,
and flowing, giving grace, healing, remembering, journeying, leading with the
yes,
heart.
all of that. So intertwined, interconnected, interwoven.
Wow. It's wonderful to delve with you, Randy. Thank you so much for the conversation and sharing with us. And
Appreciate the invite.
oh yeah, and you're my first. Well, my first and my second go, right? Because I had 4 interviews back in 2017 when I got this kicked off, and now when I'm
Before we knew each other.
yes, before we knew each other, now I'm more ready to go and more organized, and you're number 1 interview in this new time. So thank you so
Awesome.
much.
I'm thrilled. I'm honored.
Me too.